That's where the challenges really come into play in recruitment, and why it's really necessary to have specialized recruiters. Creative folks, are involved in all sorts of creative pursuits. So not necessarily just design, but music, theater. And I think that really woke up a lot of people to understand, with this new technology.
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands like yours with comprehensive hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Now, today we've got a very special guest. We have Kate Bannister with us on The Growth Switch. She's the founder of Hive Talent Advisors, and she is a force in executive search for creatives, design, marketing leadership, and she's going to help us unpack what's broken in recruitment right now and how she is rebuilding it with empathy, strategy, and results. Kate, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. So I would love to kick this off with your origin story. What made you leave the traditional recruiting world to launch Hive Talent Advisors? What was this product market fit that you saw in the niche?
Yeah, so I've been actually recruiting now for just around 20 years or so, really specific into this space, right? Creative marketing and design, and working for several different types of companies in-house, leading their teams, recruiting their top talent. And for me, going into my own firm and my own practice was basically a long time coming. It's something that I've been really toying with, kind of that voice in the back of my head, is always there. Recently in 2024, I had my son in January, and that totally flipped the script for me and my priorities. And so I had taken that time to kind of think through my future and also, what I can give to a broader sense of companies and talent. And so that's how Hive Talent Advisors was born, basically.
Yeah, it was quite literally born with the birth of your son, with this like reimagining of yourself,
Yeah, I mean, during that time period, there's a lot of change. There's a lot of identity and questioning and purpose, reflection and kind of where I saw myself in my career and what I could really give to the world at that point. And it just really became, instead of that voice, in the back of my head, it started really kind of coming to the forefront. And, I looked at my husband and was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump in, feet first and let's go and let's do this. And so, so I launched in October of 2024. So we're not even a year old yet.
Yeah, fantastic idea though, because what you are tapping into is a connectedness, right? And I think that there is a disconnect out there, especially when it comes to recruiters and creatives. Recruiters typically have a very traditional mindset about how are we going to get the right person for the job, and creatives bring a completely new element to that. It's much broader and deeper than many hiring companies, and often many recruiters are able to provide support for. So why do you think so many agencies get it wrong when they're hiring for design and marketing roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think really what it comes down to is really understanding the nuances of that type of industry. It's a very nuance based type of industry, type of niche, right? You really need to dive into it over time. It's not something that you can just pick up and learn on the fly. It's something that you have to nurture. You have to really build those relationships with those designers and creatives to really truly understand exactly what it is that they do and what does good design mean. It's not a muscle that recruiters automatically have. And so it's really taking that time to understand the principles of design, but also what good work is and how does that drive business value. When you're talking about whether it's a campaign, whether it's a mobile app or, some sort of systematic design system, right? So it's really understanding that. And in recruitment, it takes a while to get to that point. And recruitment is traditionally has been very reactive, right? It's like,
Mhm.
hey, we need this now. And, so then it's like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult sometimes to have that recruiter aligned to what that hiring manager or leader in that organization is really truly looking for. So it does create a lot of times that friction and tension there,
Mhm.
which kind of erodes at the trust portion that, hey, is my recruiter truly understanding what the need is, and are they actually going to be able to find the best talent for this role?
Yeah. And to piggyback onto that, I think that there's a bit of a catch-22 in there as well when it comes to the creative types of things when it's not analytical, right? If you are not a very good writer and you are hiring a writer, you can't necessarily look at their writing and say, oh yeah, this is effective, this is good writing. And it's the same with design. If you are not a designer and you need a designer for your team, you can't necessarily look through their portfolio and say this is good design or this is bad design if you don't know about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's where the challenges really come into play, in recruitment, and why it's really necessary to have specialized recruiters that really specifically understand the design process and the creative portfolios and things like that. It really does set you apart if you truly do understand what's needed. And really what that comes down to, honestly, is the relationships that you build with your hiring team, your leads, the team in general, like the designers that are already kind of surrounding you in your organization, and, the community itself, right? Really understanding and taking the time to soak up as much knowledge as you can. So, some of the tips that I've done throughout my career have been portfolio reviews with my hiring team and leads to truly understand, what makes a good portfolio, and have them walk me through, why this is a good portfolio or why this isn't, right? And do that over time so you understand more about not only what to look for, but also what their aesthetic is, their design choices, what really kind of drives them, so that you're kind of aligning into understanding how to match that with what they're looking for. And then on the flip side, it's really also immersing yourself within that type of community, right? I mean, creative folks, are involved in all sorts of creative pursuits. So not necessarily just design, but music, theater, writing, etc. And so if you're immersing yourself into that type of culture or community, you start to soak a lot of that stuff in, and also are able to relate to those individuals, and be able to also sort of craft your own storytelling and relevancy into what it is that they do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that we've also seen this shifting over time. I think especially since the market has changed so radically since 2020, with the advent of generative AI, really just in the last year or two, actually becoming good enough to start, where a person who doesn't have an eye for design might say, oh, well, we could just pop that into AI and just generate this. So what are the trends that you're seeing now when it comes to hiring creative talent?
Yeah, there's definitely a sort of hotbed in terms of the market right now. There's a lot of momentum, conversation, and buzz happening around creative and design talent specifically. It's been kind of brewing for the past, I would say, a year or two, but really more so the gasoline kind of was lit a few weeks ago when Johnny Ive and Sam Altman made their announcement with their collaboration with OpenAI and the investment that, they are making in a experience-led, design-led, human-centric sort of future with AI technology. And I think that really woke up a lot of people to understand, with this new technology, yes, it can obviously help with efficiencies and creating different workflows and yes, generating different mock-ups and things like that, right? But there needs to be a human-centric element to this. And the folks that really understand that nuance and kind of can create that really empathetic environment and experience are creative and designers and product strategists and things like that that can really take what you're doing with AI in your business and make it a humanistic experience. And that's what we're starting to see even more. And then you're also seeing a lot of leaders in the industry starting to make some shifts as well. So actually, I think it was yesterday that John Hoke had announced he's leaving Nike. So he was there for about 30 years in their design and innovation space. So, you're starting to see some of that turnover and that new sort of, new wave come through. And a lot of it will be design and product strategy focus.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So how do you connect best with companies? And I mean, on that end, how do companies best connect with you? Where do you seek out to find them and where can they find you?
Yeah. So for me, I think what makes me pretty distinct within the industry, not only obviously the niche of creative and design and my network and all of that. However, I do think my experience in-house at different types of companies. So I have experience with startups. I've built startup organizations, consulting firms, advertising agencies. And then I've also had experience within enterprise level large companies as well. So I adapt pretty well to these different environments and I understand the organizational and talent challenges internally so that I'm able to really approach clients or even prospects or whatnot around the talent value that I do bring and understand where they're currently at. Whether if they're a Series A startup, okay, you're in this mode and this is what you're going to need, at least for the next funding stage. And then obviously, as you continue to grow, you're going to need additional expertise. Mm-hmm. And then if you're an enterprise level company, right, what are the challenges around the organizational structure? How does that kind of feed into all of these different teams and how are they, kind of coming together in a consistent brand centric experience?
Yeah. And it sounds like you've locked in what it is that you do and who that you're doing it for. And you have all this wonderful value to offer. So as a relatively new company, if you wanted to 2x, 5x, 10x your company over the next few years, what's the one thing keeping you back? What's the one big barrier to explosive growth that if you were able to, you could just smash out of your way?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question. I think for me, it's, I'm just starting out on my own. So if I could clone myself, that would be ideal. But
that comes next year.
It's really, being a business owner and an entrepreneur and, honestly, a mother to a young one. It's really being disciplined and consistent in not only my, routine and my focus and what needs to get done, but also my mindset. And I've been doing a lot of work, around and just learning all these new different pieces that I honestly had no idea about. Right. So being a business owner and understanding, accounting, with invoices and payments and like all of that, sort of thing that I just, I had no prior experience with, or, tracking revenue and targets and things like that, or even just business development. That's another big one where being in recruiting, you are storytelling and pitching to potential candidates. However, on this side, it's more about, okay, how am I doing that, but in a business development way? And it's different. So
It is for sure. So, we hear a lot about uncertain markets, the volatile market, the this, the that, which is kind of crazy because we're definitely in no way like in a recession, because companies are also, on the other hand, just spending, spending, spending. But as an expert, what's the advice that you would give companies right now to avoid expensive mishires so that they can build this sustainable talent pipeline and keep their company going no matter what the market's doing?
yeah, no, absolutely. I think really it's understanding, who are the partners and experts in your field that, can really truly, add value to exactly what it is that you're trying to build, and who've built it before, right? From my point of view in my business, I'm not looking to replace your entire recruiting team or in-house. I did get a lot of those types of like, oh, we have our own in-house recruiters, and that's great. But, for certain types of high level, high stakes hires, it requires a different skill set. It requires a different network, and a different story to bring the right candidate into the fold, into the mix. It's not, hey, let's just put a job posting out there, see what happens, and go through all of these candidates, have a million rounds of interviews and hope that we find the right person. It's actually going out there and finding, the right person initially. Those people are not looking right now. They're open to conversations, but they're not actively on the job boards and applying to positions. So I think from a business perspective, it's partnering with an expert, right? To add that value. And also, looking at if it's, a mishire. I mean, mishires cost you way more. Probably, I think what the statistic is, 2 or 3x, the salary between all of the time spent on the upfront, the onboarding. But then the other issue is the revenue miss. If you don't have that leader or that person in place, you're missing out on, delays of product launches or, new offerings, or, if you're a consulting firm, you're missing out on that revenue that you could be billing a client, right? Or winning a new pitch. So there's a lot of things at stake that come into play around mishires or delaying of hiring.
Yeah. And use the word hope back there. We hope we get the right person. You hope to get the right hire. And I actually hear this a lot in marketing, or I should say that I attribute the word hope a lot in marketing, is that people have a marketing plan where it's hope-based. Like, yeah, we hope we're going to grow. We hope we're going to do this. And I'm like, well, I mean, hope has its place, right? But not necessarily in hiring, not necessarily in growth, not necessarily in marketing. You really want something a little bit more assured than a hope plan. So where can people connect with you? Where can they find you so that they can get that expertise, get the right person on their team to help them find the right talent?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What the famous quote is, hope is not a strategy, right?
Yeah.
And it's not. So, in terms of getting in touch with me and having a consultation and really, truly understanding where your business is at, how, creative and design leaders can really propel your company and your product forward, especially in this new AI driven world where it's going to be exponentially more important. You can find me at hivetalentadvisors.com, or you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and I love to share, different tips and tricks and articles and insights that are happening in this space. So yeah, you can find me in those places.
Yep. And for all the viewers, for all the listeners, go ahead and look into the show notes. All of those links are going to be right there for your convenience. One click, it'll take you to her LinkedIn. It'll take you to the company profile. You can check those out right there. Kate, thank you so much. It's been really wonderful having your expertise and insight on the show. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
For sure.